Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Dr. Akash Show. Now, today I'm going to talk about something that absolutely affects all of us very personally, and I'm sure you've dealt with it as well. And that topic is going to be sleep. We're going to talk about sleep today. As always, I'm going to take the topic, we're going to break it down to understand why it's important, and then we're going to discuss rituals and routines to keep you resilient and make you robust. So let's get into it. Sleep. Sleep is incredibly important for all of us. We used to think that sleep was just something you had to try to squeeze in between working. But what we have come to understand is sleep itself is a very productive state. Now, I remember as a medical school intern and resident in anesthesiology, we would do these on-call shifts where we were awake continuously for greater than 24-hour stretches. And I specifically remember driving home after those long stretches of no sleep whatsoever and just doing my best to stay awake in order to get home. I mean, there were times where I couldn't even make it home and I'd have to pull over and just take a nap in the car in order to safely get home. So at that point, I began to understand really the importance and power of sleep. And looking into it, we now understand sleep is very, very important for your entire overall physiology and your entire physical being. I'm going to discuss 9 things that a lack of sleep can cause. So, number one, your immune system. A lack of sleep can cause your immune system to become less effective, less productive. This is typically why, if you meet somebody who doesn't really sleep well, or you haven't slept well in a couple of days, you may start to feel kind of sick and weak, and you may actually start to get little colds and things like that. It's because your immune system is decreased. The next topic is simple growth and development. Now, this is especially important for young kids and teenagers and growing adults. When we sleep, there is a specific set of hormones that are released, which can help with so many different physiological functions. Things like growth hormone. If your growth hormone release is thrown off or is being artificially repressed because your sleep patterns are poor, this can lead to a direct developmental delay in kids and teenagers. Not just physically being less developed, but also your organs themselves may not necessarily develop quite as quickly as well. And that can lead to problematic functioning down the road. Another example is cortisol. If your cortisol levels are too high while you're sleeping, then simple functions like insulin resistance can go up, and your glucose metabolism and your ability to deal with sugar in your blood can be very, very affected. This can lead to things like prediabetes. So think about that. If you're not getting enough sleep and you're also eating poorly, for example, and maybe you're not exercising, because these 3 bad habits all kind of go together, you're promoting and accelerating not just your aging, but your likelihood of developing things like diabetes. And it's not all physical, guys. A lack of sleep can also affect how well you relate to other people, what your overall mood is that day, how reactive you may or may not be. And all of these factors can definitely change the way your mindset is for a particular day and overall just change the trajectory and the path of your day. Listen, if you're not sleeping well, you may wake up late, you may miss certain important aspects of your morning routine, and then you're just kind of playing catch up, running into your day, just trying to keep up, just trying to keep your head above water. And then if anybody asks you anything kind of, unexpected or something that maybe raises some emotion in you, you're going to be less likely to be able to cope with that and respond rather than react. So if you find yourself getting reactive more and more, or you find yourself just kind of in a poor mood and you're not necessarily sure why, sleep can absolutely be contributing to that. A lack of sleep in the long term can also specifically affect your cardiac and circulatory system. Patients who have a lack of sleep for an ongoing extended amount of time have a greater likelihood of stroke, obesity, high blood pressure, and cardiovascular disease. All of these things can be killers in and of themselves. So look at these factors too and consider these larger factors that are potentially lethal if you're not getting the sleep that you need to get. Hormones, guys, as we briefly talked about with growth hormone in kids and teens, this also applies to adults. So if you're very stressed out and because of that you're not sleeping well, your cortisol levels might be flipped where they're higher at night and your blood glucose levels may be higher than they should be. You're just kind of marching along to that pre-diabetic and upcoming diabetic road, which has a whole host of other problems. Maybe your growth hormone isn't where it needs to be, If you're a male, your testosterone levels may be totally thrown off by a lack of sleep as well. You can have a decrease in testosterone levels with poor sleep, not to mention just overall housekeeping effects of your body that needs to occur during sleep so you can regenerate and kind of recharge and refresh your system. None of these things are happening with poor sleep. So not only are you potentially affecting your just ability to function day to day psychologically and physically, but you're causing long-term damage with your overall hormone levels, and those have outreaching, long lasting effects for a very, very long time. Now, listen, the next one is very relatable. Have you ever noticed how when you don't sleep well, the next day you're much more likely to eat poorly? You're much more likely to break your diet. You're much more likely to skip that workout. You're much more likely to maybe have more sugars or more fats than you normally do, or whatever the case may be. All of these are because you have that slight lack of that edge, that little bit of willpower that you really needed to kind of resist those desires and temptations is now gone because of your lack of sleep. And all of those things collectively, if not monitored or corrected over time, and this compounds and continues, can lead to things like metabolic syndrome, can lead to chronic degenerative states as well, and just having an overall picture of poor metabolism, poor physiology. And these things just feed into the problem, making things worse. Now you're more likely to eat poorly, get obese, not work out, and the problem just continues and perpetuates itself, all because of something that potentially could be completely avoided, which is altering your sleep and just tweaking a few things, which we'll talk about momentarily. And of course, thinking and memory, right? If you're not sleeping well, you're not going to be quite as sharp. You're not going to be quite as on it. You may have more foggy thinking. Your memory is going to suffer as well. You're not going to be able to remember things quite as well as you normally would had you had a good night's sleep. So these are major, major problems that we can see with sleep. That's just 9 problems, but each one of those can lead to a whole host of other metabolic and medical issues down the road. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what sleep really is. Sleep is when our body, it kind of does its own internal housekeeping and cleanup, and that includes things like hormonal balance, all sorts of other systems going on while we're sleeping. There's 2 types of sleep, generally speaking. There's REM, or rapid eye movement, and then non-REM sleep. The best way to think about this and keep it super simple for our purposes is REM sleep. That's when your brain is the most active. That's when you're actively dreaming. And non-REM sleep, that's more of the deeper sleep. And you can continue to break that down as well. But that's not the topic of today's conversation. That's just a general primer for you. So let's get into what we can do to kind of fix our sleep. Here's some practical, cheap or free tips that you can use immediately after this video to optimize your sleep starting tonight. So let's get into it, guys. Rituals and routines. This is always a topic that we address on all of these issues. But before we get into that, if you haven't yet, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share this video for me. This is a brand new channel for us, and if you like it, you teach the algorithms to show this and expose this to more like-minded people like us. So please like, subscribe, and share, follow, do whatever you can to help promote this to other like-minded people. But anyway, let's get into it. So rituals and routines. Here are some things you can do to help optimize your sleep. Number 1, no screens 2 hours before you sleep. This includes phones, this includes TVs, this includes computers, all of the above. The reason for that is because these devices emit blue light, and blue light can trick your brain into thinking this is sunlight, and that can totally throw off your circadian rhythms to make you think it's still daylight outside and it's still time to be awake, and your body will maintain that state. So just kill the screens 1 to 2 hours before, ideally 2 hours before you're ready to sleep, and let your body begin to just understand and slow down and adjust to the lack of the blue light, kind of interpreting the fact that, okay, night is coming, we're not having those stimulating factors quite as much. Next, no caffeine after 2 p.m. your time. Caffeine has a long half-life, so if you're taking caffeine in, that will continue to stimulate your body to keep you awake way after you think you've had the effects of that caffeine wear off. Now, caffeine, generally speaking, works by increasing levels of adenosine by blocking the uptake of that molecule. So when your adenosine levels are higher because of a cup of coffee you had at 3 p.m. and it's now 8 or 9 or 10 p.m., and you're not able to kind of drop those levels down, you're going to feel stimulated. And that's going to definitely affect the quality of your sleep. So no caffeine, no stimulating products like that after 2 p.m. One ritual I personally really like is adapting some sort of a process that you begin to participate participate in about an hour before you sleep. So for example, that might be, having a specific type of tea, and maybe that tea, like more of a chamomile or a sleeping promoting type tea, with, that process of having that tea and sitting there for 5 minutes peacefully to have that is now telling your body, and eventually will teach your body, hey, this is our transition period. We are now transitioning from awake to asleep, because every time I taste or smell this tea, I know the next few minutes I'm going to be laying down to sleep. And over time, you'll actually teach your body this habit. So if you pick a tea that you like, for example, obviously not caffeinated, and use that as a transitionary kind of mechanism or device to teach your brain and to teach your body, hey, it's time to kind of slow things down. Another thing that I like is an acupressure mat. If you get an acupressure mat, and it's something you can just lay on, you can pick one up off of Amazon. Now, these little pressure points, when you lay on it, initially will feel very uncomfortable, but will actually increase an endorphin release in your body. And by increasing that endorphin release, you're now going to feel a bit more tired and a bit more kind of lethargic and more calm and more comfortable, and prepare yourself for sleep. Next, there are supplements that you can use to help promote sleep in a very healthy way. Top of mind in this area include magnesium. If you take magnesium glycinate, it's the most easily and quickly absorbed type of magnesium, and it will absolutely help promote relaxation and sleep. L-theanine is another one. L-theanine is an amino acid that's a centrally nervous system acting amino acid, and basically it causes more of a calm, kind of relaxing state of mind. It'll actually improve focus, but it'll get you kind of more calm and more peaceful and prepared to transition into sleep. Your environment. Now, your environment is very, very important. The colder and darker you can handle your environment, the better you're going to sleep. Now, you may feel like you're going to be cold if you're running at around 65 degrees in the room, which is ideal, but you're not, because eventually, if you have a blanket, you're going to warm up. And having that coolness actually promotes, several studies, tons of studies have proven this, but having that coolness definitely promotes sleep more than having a warm room, more than having a warm temperature. So definitely promote a cooler room. 65 to 70 degrees is ideal. Stay as cool as you can tolerate. Same applies to the environment. Light. Keep the room nice and dark. Minimal light coming in, again, minimizes that blue light, which again will minimize your body being confused, thinking that it's actually waking hours. So cold and dark is where you want to be. Next is journaling. So listen, the beauty of journaling, especially before you go to sleep, is if you're a person who tends to sit in bed and have these ruminating thoughts about things you got to do tomorrow, or things that maybe happened today, or, I got to remember this when I wake up, I can't forget, and you try to say it to yourself over and over and over. That rings a bell. I'm sure we've all kind of been down that road. If you have a journal and you write all this stuff out and you just get it out of your mind and onto a piece of paper, a confidential journal, only you read it. The grammar doesn't matter. The syntax doesn't matter. You're just getting it from your brain onto the paper. So the next day when you wake up, you can review that. You can handle your issues or handle your tasks. But most importantly, you're not going to be stressed about it or worried about it when you're trying to sleep. It's out of your mind. It's written down. You don't have to be anxious about remembering it. And you can actually let that go as well, kind of further move into more of a peaceful, calm state. Sometimes music is helpful for people, sometimes not. Quiet sometimes really helps people kind of just allow themselves to transition into sleep. Maybe some calming music also will help. But think about that. Those are the tools that you can use. Those are the rituals and routines that you can develop tonight. Let's go over them again real quick. No blue screens for 2 hours before sleep. No caffeine after 2 p.m. Consider journaling. Put a journal and a pen next to your bed. Go old school. Don't use your phone, because if you use your phone, you're going to hit that blue light again, right? So old school journaling. Consider having some sort of transition ritual, like drinking a certain kind of cup of tea or something like that. Maybe associate that with some music as well. Acupressure mat might be something for you to consider as well. And then finally, make sure the environment is cold and dark. As cold as you can handle it, 65 degrees being ideal, and as dark as you can possibly handle it. Using these rituals and routines is going to help you become much more resilient. Now, resiliency, as we define it, is the ability to handle difficult situations, move through it as quickly as possible, and move forward. This could be physical situations, this could be psychological situations or mental situations, this could be a life stressor, this could be a health issue. It's all related, guys. So the ability to be resilient in the face of danger and in the face of struggle and suffering and push through it is what's going to help you become a stronger, better, more optimized version of yourself. And all of that, one of the major foundations of being resilient is getting your sleep in check. And then finally, staying robust. If you can be robust, aka be the most powerful version of yourself, you're going to time collapse and you're going to move forward to your goals as much, much quicker. This means you need to have the ability to think clearly. You have to have the energy to actually move quickly on your thoughts and on your goals. You have to be able to make a decision and not wallow in indecisiveness. You have to be able to have strong networks and relate with people very well. And all of these relational type skills, which are all directly affected by the amount of sleep you've gotten or not gotten. You need to be physically able to work out and move your body every day. That's not going to happen if you're not sleeping well, and therefore you're not eating well and you're wasting time, right? There's another reason why not sleeping is actually very dangerous. There's studies that now show if you haven't slept for 17 hours, that's equivalent to a blood alcohol level of 0.05% if you're driving. So most states, 0.04% is the legal limit. So not sleeping for 17 hours is equivalent of driving drunk. Now, if you haven't slept for 24 hours, that's the equivalent of a blood alcohol level of 0.10%. That's more than 2 times the legal limit of being drunk behind the wheel in most states. So being awake for 24 hours is like driving very drunk. Not just drunk, but very drunk, okay? So not getting enough sleep and getting behind the wheel can be lethal for yourself as well as for your community. Not to mention all of these long-term health consequences we've discussed, as well as these psychological consequences as well. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope this was helpful for you. If you found any value in this, please like, subscribe, and share this to you and all your friends, and the algorithms will then begin to show it to other like-minded people. And remember, the best time to start something was yesterday. The next best time is today. Don't look back tomorrow with regret. Take one small step today to help yourself become unbreakable.